Card skimming recently compromised over 600 debit cards right here in Winnipeg, reminding all of us we have to be vigilant when reaching into our wallets. To help us find out how to protect ourselves from debit card scams is the founder of Securus Inc., Michael Legary. Thanks for coming in this morning.
Absolutely.
We hear this word skimming all the time. Can you give us a few examples of what skimming actually means?
Sure. Skimming is when somebody gets your credit card data, your track data, your card number, and the related information by either literally swiping it through a card reader or accessing it using a fraudulent chip and PIN device.
Okay, now when I'm paying for something, usually there's a lineup behind me. I just want to get it done and get out of there. Don't want to hold people up. But is there anything we can actually look for on the actual device that will give it away?
The short answer is yes. What we look for is something, anything that looks flimsy, looks attached, looks glued on. If the machine's in disrepair, be questionable of it, of why it's there. These devices get added in on the top or inside the device. So sometimes it's hard for you to tell, but if you're uncomfortable, just choose not to use the machine.
So I guess the main message there is just be aware of your surroundings, even people around you too.
Absolutely. Again, part of the catch is that when they skim the card, depending on how they do it, they'll still need your PIN. So if somebody's monitoring or if they have a camera set up, you want to make sure that you've covered your PIN appropriately and that you've taken all the precautions to protect yourself.
All right, what about the cards themselves? Are there any tips you can give us, whether it has to do with linking to different accounts or whatnot?
Absolutely. For folks who use their debit cards on a regular basis, one of the neat things to do is actually separate your regular daily transaction accounts with your high-value accounts. So if your debit card is breached, only low-value accounts that you might use for daily bill payments or going to the grocery store will be impacted, and not your savings accounts. And that's something very easily you can do at the bank.
Okay, when it comes to fraudulent activity, what's the difference between debit cards and credit cards?
Essentially, from a payment perspective, the key thing for folks to realize is it's a different form of liability. So it's a different relationship with your vendor, the credit card company or the bank. And for credit cards, often we're only liable for $500 in fraud, depending on the particular brand. For debit cards linking to our bank accounts, every financial institution is different. So some of them we might be on the hook for nothing, $500, or there may not be any particular guarantee of funds being recovered depending on the situation. So you got to make sure that you understand what your institution covers for your debit card.
Okay, so a guy like you who deals with this kind of stuff all the time, what do you prefer to use, debit or credit?
Actually, myself, I use debit. It's in Canada, that's the way we do it, but to make sure things are separated out and just again limit the impact it's going to have on you if something gets stolen and when it gets stolen, because unfortunately it's inevitable nowadays.
What about when it comes to travel? Do you have any kind of special tips for us then?
Absolutely. Plan ahead. One of the things is, regardless if it's credit or debit, make sure that your institution knows you're traveling, so they can actually put on special flags on the account to make sure certain activities are valid, and also your end dates. Because typically what happens is that if your card gets skimmed while you're traveling abroad, if they know your end date you're coming back, any out-of-province transaction after that point, they'll immediately flag and stop. Whereas typically folks will come back, not think about it, and 3, 4, 8 months later, there's a transaction that ends up causing an issue on their account. Often their card gets locked. Instead of if they had put the flag on there, they'd probably still be able to use their card while that fraudulent transaction will be looked into. Okay, and
self-awareness, monitor those accounts, right?
Absolutely. Diligence. Every month, make sure you understand what every little expense is. Often, a skimmer will test the card very early on. So they'll simply do a dollar transaction or even a couple cents. So if you see an abnormal transaction on that monthly basis, question it. Make sure you understand every transaction and be prepared to deal with something if it happens.
All right, Michael, thanks a lot for those tips. Thanks for coming in this morning.